Hello, I'm Jay Davenport, Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations at VCU. And in this episode of VCU Voices, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Scott Breuninger, Dean of the VCU Honors College. Dr. Breuninger joined us in the summer of 2020. He previously served as the Professor of History at the University of South Dakota, where he also served as the Director of the University Honors Program for 9 years. He has taught a range of courses in British, Irish, and intellectual history, as well as classes specifically designed for honors students. While at USD, he was the recipient of the College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Faculty Award and the Cutler Award for Research and Teaching. His research focuses on social, moral, and economic dimensions of the Enlightenment, particularly how this movement was expressed in Ireland. This work has resulted in a book, a co-edited collection, and numerous articles and chapters exploring aspects of the Enlightenment in Irish and Atlantic history during the 18th century. Scott, welcome today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you have the distinction of being one of our deans that started during the pandemic. So I want to ask you, first of all, what's it been like to start at VCU, but during a pandemic?
It has been extraordinarily bizarre, to be honest. And some of that has to do with the fact that the Honors College building was actually serving as the COVID overflow, overflow space, and so we didn't really have a building for most of this year, and consequently, everyone's been working remotely. I've been working remotely from halfway across the country for large swaths of time. And so it's been a very unusual experience that, quite frankly, I never thought I would have, and really would be perfectly fine never having to experience again. That said, though, all of my colleagues, everyone I've met have all been extraordinarily helpful, friendly, welcoming, but it's been a weird situation.
It is surreal, and it's one of the reasons that I'm really glad that we can do this, to introduce you to some of the alumni and then just the VCU community in general.
No, I think that's great. I'm really looking forward to actually being able to meet more people in person.
Absolutely. So give us an idea of your career and what inspired your interest in her history.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia, and in that area, sort of history is everywhere. When I was a kid, I loved learning about the original settlers, the founding fathers. The Liberty Bell was not right down the street, but we would go there for class trips, and so history was always something I was interested in. And then as I grew older, I grew more interested in sort of English and Irish history. There was something about the idea of change over time and how it shaped individuals and peoples I found really appealing. And Stonehenge, right? I mean, Stonehenge as a sort of like early teen boy, that was like, wow, that is awesome. I have to go see it. And it was something about these mysterious buildings, the pyramids, whatever. So I got interested in history. When I went to college at Bucknell, I majored in history and psychology. And my interest there really sort of covered the broad movements of people and ideas. And both of my advisors, John Kirkland and Ernie Keene, were really well read, and they inspired me to develop an interest in the history of ideas, or what we call intellectual history. I wrote my honors thesis on the ethical dimension of Sigmund Freud's work, sort of rethinking his legacy and how it had an impact upon the development of psychology. And it was a great opportunity to really read through his works and develop the critical and thinking and reading skills that I thought that I'd need later in my professional life. When I graduated, I was trying to decide, okay, what comes next? And decided I was going to go into history. Went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, worked with a great mentor, Larry Dickey, and I found myself increasingly moving back in time. So at first, when I got there, I was going to work on the 20th century. And I was like, no, but I need to know more about the 19th century to really understand that. Then I moved back. I was like, okay, the French Revolution. That's kind of cool, right? I mean, there's guillotines, lots of excitement. And then I realized, to really understand that, I have to get to the early 18th century, and this period known as the Enlightenment. And what interests me about the Enlightenment and really got me sort of moving in that direction is the fact that during that period, there was a distinctive shift from a sort of pre-modern society to one that's distinctively and recognizably modern. So in terms of social organization, like the language of rights and citizens versus the language of subjects, in terms of economic development, in terms of morality, sociability, all of these things happened during that period that shaped how we live today. And so I found that really fascinating. Started working on a guy named George Berkeley in Ireland for a number of reasons. Berkeley, he's a philosopher that's probably best known for "the tree falls and the forest doesn't make a sound." The answer for him is yes, because God's listening to it. But what I was interested in was the fact that he wrote all this philosophy stuff, but he was also involved in these social and economic debates. He wasn't like a major player, but he was involved in them. So kind of like the Forrest Gump of intellectual history, like involved in these big moments, but not necessarily central. And so I wrote my dissertation on him, which eventually turned into a book. Taught after graduate school, I taught in Minnesota for a year, then Philadelphia for a year on one-year positions, and then ended up at the University of South Dakota. USD had great colleagues, a wonderful town. Did what I needed to do to get tenure, so teaching, research, and service. Then after I had tenure, was applied for and was hired as the director of the honors program, and had a lot of great experiences working there and with the honor students there.
So you're at USD and very happy with the way things are. What attracted you to VCU?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things I found really appealing about VCU. I mean, VCU is a great university, has a fantastic reputation, and so right off the bat, it's an appealing place to work. But even more importantly, I think, is the connection between VCU and the Richmond community, the way that the university is embedded within the broader region. I mean, in a sense, VCU really is a great model for showing how a university can make a difference in a larger society. And one of my academic interests back in the 18th century Enlightenment period really had to do with something that was known as sociability, like why and how do people work together for the common good. And VCU's commitment to community shows this in action today. And the university is making a real difference in the region. And so this academic interest I have, I think is really important during the Enlightenment, I can see happening here. And VCU, the support for diversity and equity at VCU, that's also something that's really important. I mean, in today's society, it's essential that those of us in higher education work to ensure that all students are welcome and valued. Hearing and valuing a diversity of perspectives is something that makes us stronger. And VCU's support for these issues is certainly part of its appeal. And I would also say that the real initiative, right? The VCU's focus upon making a real impact upon the lives of students fits really well with what I think is one of the most important trends in higher education, namely the recognition that high impact practices that engage students are really the key to their success. And the fact that VCU as a whole has embraced this movement, I think it's really inspiring. Plus, so that's sort of VCU in general, but the Honors College itself houses some of the most dedicated and committed faculty and staff that I've ever met. They're all devoted to finding ways to help students succeed, and they're extremely passionate about their work. And the different perspectives and the diversity of the students also provides a great opportunity for the students and faculty to be energized, to develop the skills they're going to need to move forward. Furthermore, I mean, the Honors College is embedded within the community. There's some classes within honors that are directly focused upon making an impact upon Richmond. And so, I mean, from my perspective, there's a lot of great things and great synergy between VCU and the Honors College, and the types of attitudes and practices that are embedded and within both institutions, or connected institutions, I suppose, that really are incredibly relevant for students today, and it's a great privilege to be able to join and contribute to these efforts.
Now, you mentioned the faculty that are involved in the Honors College, and they really are a committed a group of individuals. Where do you find your inspiration? What motivates you as the dean of the college?
I think it's really just the opportunity to make a difference, right? I mean, whether it's helping a student understand a tricky point of history, helping them solve a scheduling snafu, or I mean, even more importantly, spending time with them to help them think through what they really want to do with their life, not what they thought they wanted to do when they got to the university, but like, what do they really, honestly, sincerely want to do, and think through that to help them find their passion. I mean, those are great opportunities and really inspirational. Plus, I mean, would also add that working with the faculty and staff who themselves are so dedicated. I mean, that in itself is also inspiring. I mean, being able to help work with the faculty and staff to help them find ways to achieve their goals is, I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Right. Now, we've touched on the very unique kind of onboarding that you've experienced, but as dean so far, what's your favorite story, or what would you like to share about your time so far at VCU?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's been a weird year with everyone being remote, us not having a building. So it's been really hard to get to know people in like the casual sense where you sort of see them in passing. Everything has to be scheduled. But I think probably one of the most sort of moving experiences has been stemming from, I set up a reading group with some of the students, and we read a book by Isabel Wilkerson entitled Caste, that talks about sort of the long history of how different groups of people have been privileged. And the students, the engagement of the students with this book and how the issues of diversity and inclusion within it related to their own experiences was really inspiring. And I mean, we did a lot of the reading last fall, and so all of the events that occurred last summer, including Monument Avenue, that were really relevant to them, that they had seen, and being able to see them make those connections between what we're reading in an academic sense and their own lived lives was fantastic. So I mean, I think that was a great story. I mean, I could tell a story about a bat and an umbrella, but that maybe is not needed at this point.
So what is your most important priority for the Honors College today?
I think probably as we're thinking about moving forward, we have a strong curriculum. But I think what we need to be able to do is to provide more support for students who are interested in participating in research. I think that VCU is a world-class research institution. We have fantastic faculty across campus doing cutting-edge research. And a lot of honor students participate in this, but I think that one of our priorities moving forward for honors is to find ways to make this process easier for students so that they can be paired with VCU faculty and in their labs as a way to get a head start for their academic careers as early as possible. I mean, we have a great first year writing program that gets students started in research. In fact, this past year, I think we sent more students to present at NCUR, the National Council for Undergraduate Research, than any other university, particularly for first-year students.
Wow.
But we need to find ways to build upon that after their first year within honors. So I think that's probably one of the biggest priorities. I'd also say that what we need to reach out and better integrate the Honors College into the broader communities associated with VCU. I mean, as we come out of the pandemic, I'm really interested in building bridges with alumni, former students who can share their experiences with the current students and really just help them make those connections that they're going to need as they move forward.
Absolutely. And that's really an interesting, there are so many benefits of being in a large research institution. And as an undergraduate, it's always exciting when we can introduce more of those research opportunities to undergraduate students. So love that idea.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of potential there, and a lot of it's being done. I don't want to minimize what's being done. But I think, but finding ways to institutionalize it a little bit more and make it a little bit easier for the students to get involved, particularly for first generation students who might not know that this is even an option. I mean, that was me far too many years ago I'm not going to disclose. But when I first got to college, I didn't realize like, wow, you can do research with professors and they're going to be interested in it. So I think finding ways to really encourage that and build it into the curriculum is really essential for what we're doing.
Absolutely. Now, you've been in leadership positions in American higher education for quite some time now. So if I were to give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about American higher ed, what would that be?
I mean, that's a good and really important question. And I think that if my biggest wish, and I suspect a lot of students would share it as well, would be to increase the equity of opportunity for all students in terms of providing academic challenges and opportunities for them to really grow and discover themselves, but also in economic terms. I mean, higher education in general is getting more and more expensive, and we need to pursue everything we can to make it more affordable. I think that some of this involves making sure that our curriculum is clear and has an identifiable goal so that students know that they're getting something out of this. But I think we also need to do everything we can to raise funds for students in need so that anyone who wants to have a quality education can receive it. And whether these are from private altruistic donors or partnerships with corporate entities, I mean, whatever we can do to lower the cost of education, I think would be great. I mean, I've been really impressed that with VCU's recent efforts to freeze tuition rates so that more students can afford to attend the university. But I think we need to keep working to find other ways to help students have the opportunity to join us at VCU, or to at least like find Harry Potter's wand and use that.
If only one existed, right?
that would be really awesome.
So I'd like to wrap this up by finding out something about yourself that might surprise some of the viewers. So something that they can't read in your bio, but is something you either enjoy doing or something that's unique about you.
Sure. That's an interesting question. And so I'll go with a rather idiosyncratic response. I only ski in the Swiss Alps. Now, I say this because when I was doing my research on my dissertation in England, I visited a friend who was in Germany. And while I was there, I went into the Swiss Alps. I tried skiing once. I failed miserably. I mean, I was on the bunny slope. I was going down, and all these little kids coming up and asking if I was okay, because like my method of stopping was to throw myself at the ground. And after these kids knew that they were fine, they continued on their merry way while I basically lumbered to the base of the mountain. And since that time, I've never been skiing, and I don't plan to go again unless I go back to the Swiss Alps.
It's kind of like our football team is undefeated, right?
Exactly. Figure I haven't broken any bones doing it yet. So.
Well, Scott, it's been a great time talking with you today, and I really appreciate you carving out some time to share your insights into the Honors College and allowing our alumni to get to know you a little bit better as well.
Well, like I said, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to visit with you, and for any alumni who are watching this, I'd be really happy to visit with them as well.
Perfect. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.